How you doing? How you doing? How you doing, ladies and gentlemen? It's your boy Patty, and thank you so much for stopping by today. I appreciate that face. And in honor of all of our new SEA players and everything, I kind of wanted to do an updated like beginner's guide to the game. Since there's so many new eyes on everything right now, and because I don't really want y'all to have to go back and watch my content from like 2-3 months ago, where I had less of an idea of what was going on in the game than I do now. So now that we're a little bit more experienced, you know what I mean? Figure we might give a little bit better advice than we did months and months ago. But I have really noticed the arrival of all the SEA players, because my YouTube has been getting crazy hits, and it's all on all of my older videos. So I really appreciate and love you guys for all of that. In the last 48 hours, I'm sitting around 15,000 views. So kind of my best days on YouTube out of absolutely nowhere. So, you know, if you haven't seen any of my other stuff, I do not care where you are standing on this earth when the sun rises in the morning. I love you, face. I appreciate you, and I hope the best for you, your people, your family, your friends, and your own future. I just love everybody, and I want to save the world. So, you know, we're just trying to help people from making too many mistakes in this and costing themselves resources, because resources are expensive in this game. So this is going to be a mix of like kind of stuff to prioritize, how some things work, and it's just going to be kind of an intro. Hey, here's the best way I can package and explain some of the basic things in the game to you. So real quick, let's just touch on all the classes and everything. This used to be my assassin that's standing behind me right now, and I loved my assassin, and I stuck with my assassin all the way until fighter came out. And there were a lot of people that didn't. They're very fun, very engaging class. They do amazing damage in PvE, and in PvP they can do well, but it's very easy for them to get bullied, because they don't have a whole bunch of super armor or CC immunity. They get picked on a little bit. So if you're more PvE oriented, and enjoy some PvP, Assassin's a great class for that, boo, and it's very fun with you switching between the Hunter form, where you're shooting from a range and you kind of feel like you're a mage, and then the Shadow form, where you bring out the daggers and you get a little stabby in there. It's a good time. It's a good time. Gunslinger, absolutely an amazing class. They do better in PvP than Assassins do, but they definitely still get bullied by Blade Masters. Blade Masters just bully everybody. We'll touch on that in a second. But one of the things that's, you know, gunslingers have over assassins in PvE is gunslingers have a much easier time of soloing content, because they're able to do really great damage while kiting, and assassins don't have as much mobility with their damage as gunslingers do. So keep that in mind if you're going to be really PvE focused. Gunslinger is amazing, and they do great damage. Blade Master is absolutely gross. You can either go tanky or you can go full damage build with them. I think most top players do a heavier mix of the tankier side, and then starting to focus on damage a little bit. The amount of stuns and CC that these guys have, plus CC immunity, is just gross. They are absolute monsters in PvP, and the amount of work that you can beat them as the other classes. You can absolutely beat a Blade Master in PvP as any of the other classes. The amount of work that you have to do, how well you have to know your character and your situational awareness, is at a much higher bar than what the Blade Master needs to have to be able to serve you up your lunch. So they have a much easier time being aggressive and having it pay off in PvP. So just something to keep in mind there. And they're also a very tanky class for PvE as well, though there's not really traditional roles of like tanks and healers in dungeons. So it's not a requirement to have a Blade Master in every group. Soul Dancers are a super interesting class, and I know a couple of people that have been playing them since the beginning and absolutely love them. They're half attack and half support, and at a first glance it might seem like, you know, they're big healers in the game and everything like that. They do some healing, but it's not enough to, like, it's not like Priest in WoW where it's just big heals all the time. Nothing like that whatsoever. But they bring a lot of buffs, they bring a lot of debuffs, and they do a moderate amount of healing. So they can be very, very nasty in PvP. There's definitely times where I've started fighting a Soul Dancer and realized how well geared they were and was just like, nope, this is going to be too long and I'm probably going to die. Bye. So it's a good thing to use Fabian tactics. All right, so these are all the classes. You guys will get fighters probably around the same time that we did, so expect that to be in about 3 months or so. Maybe 2 if y'all are lucky and they're speeding up the release schedule. But there's not too high a chance of that because of the way server level works, and servers have to essentially level up over time. So there's only so fast that they can release content. So just keep that in mind. In terms of how you should prioritize your time when you're logging in every day, my biggest thing to new players is going to be story. Story quests give you the most XP, and if you've reached your daily XP limit for solo groups, which is like if you're doing a whole bunch of other stuff, you can max out on the amount of XP you can get each day. But story quests will always give experience. And story quests also will get to a certain point where it's like, okay, you've done everything. Now you need to get, say you're 65. Now you need to get 67 to be able to do, the next story quest. That's when it's really beneficial to then go and do all the other stuff. You should still try to do your dailies every day if you have the time for it. But I would prioritize story quests over absolutely anything else. And it's a great story. The story is one of my favorite things about this game. It gets super silly in times, but just the world that they build and everything that goes into it, I really, really enjoyed it. I did not come into this game expecting the story to be one of my favorite things, and it very quickly became it. So definitely don't underestimate the story, and don't put off doing it, because it's the quickest way to progress your character. And you're going to need the ability to still get XP when you run out of story quests so that you can unlock the next set. So just a little bit of 2 cents from Patty. So once we start looking into actually what stuff do you want to upgrade, and I've got some good examples here. So let's take a look at my Soul Dancer real fast. And I want to point out there's 2 things that I've seen people say are the best things to focus on early. And that's core and gear enhancements. And we'll talk about both here in a second once this finishes loading. You get a fair amount of diamonds early on from just the game giving them to you, from doing certain stuff, hitting certain achievements and benchmarks. So you end up with a decent amount of diamonds fairly early. There's also an investment pack, which is one of the few things that I recommend people, if you're interested in spending money on this game, get the investment pack to start with. Get everything figured out before you start throwing a ton of money at this game, because there are certain things that are very expensive and aren't great uses of your resources depending where you are in the game. But almost everything in the game gives you ratings, so it's very hard to tell where your resources are best spent. So one of the easiest things to do, and one of the best things in my opinion, is to try and get your core to +7 as one of your first benchmarks of what you should be focusing on. It's not something I've done on this character, but on this character I also made another mistake where I went heavily into one of my gear enhancements instead of putting some into all of them. So you need to get all of these to Wings Tier 1 to be able to essentially get a... I don't know if there's a way to deselect this so we can go back and see the overview. There we go. So once you get all of these to Wing T1, you get a special effect, you get some boosted stats and everything. Takes a lot to get to this point, okay? I put almost all of my early resources that I got into getting this up, as far as all of my Eternal Flames that you get early on and everything. I was like, okay, CDR is the most important stat for characters. I'm going to go full in on that. And we can see I only got 1,000 rating from this, okay? It's okay. It's okay. It's not great. Let's check out one of my other characters real fast. So my Gunslinger actually should be a pretty decent example of this, because I was just working on that, because an updated Gunslinger guide's coming eventually. So once we get in here and we'll take a look at this, and then we'll also start breaking down some stats and how you figure out what's important, but we'll touch on that in here in a second. Come on, loading screen. I believe in you. There we go. All right, so if we go in here and we look at gear, we can see that I've spread out my resources and everything and leveled up a little bit of everything. And we've got quite a bit more rating. The amount of HP that you get from some of these is pretty gross. So it's fairly easy to get everything to claw T1, and then they start costing 2 of the Eternal Flames. Once you get everything up to the Orange Claw, everything starts costing 3, and then the final tier costs 4 Eternal Flames, and then that's the one that you have to level up. What is this, like 9 or 10 times? So it ends up being exponentially more expensive. So when it comes to using your Eternal Flames and everything and your gear enhancements, you definitely want to spread these out to get the most value out of it. If you just go all in at your most important stat, you're going to lose out on a lot of other stats that can be really beneficial for you. And you might be wondering, Patty, how do I know what's my best stat, man? I have no idea. That's fair. It wasn't until like 2 weeks into the game that I found some of this stuff. So, see these little M's right here? Those are basically your main stats. That's what's the most important for you. So as a Gunslinger, it's going to be physical attack and then crit level, okay? If we click on the little exclamation point down here, we see what the primary stats convert into. So what stats we're actually getting each time we get a point of strength, we get a point of dexterity, we get a point of constitution. And it's important to keep that in mind, because that's what's happening with your core. How you build your core is determined on what stats you're trying to go after, and that changes based on which ones are your primary. So if you're not sure, what stats are the most important for your class, and you don't feel like going and watching 4 YouTube videos to get a good idea on it, you can just click on this, get an idea of right here what your most important substats are going to be, and then you can look at this to see which ones you should be prioritizing. These are pretty accurate, and you can choose to heavily invest into one more than another. There's some flexibility with some of the classes. Gunslingers, definitely dexterity. There is no question in the world which one's more important there. It's dexterity all day long. And then if you go to the advanced, you can also see which element your class uses. So Blade Masters, you want fire attack on your gear. What is it? Soul Dancer's water attack, Assassin is earth, and of course Wind is Gunslinger. And then Fighters is also fire, because they're not making a new element for the class. I'm pretty sure that, I'm not sure which one Scythe's going to land on, so we'll see with that one. But this is how you figure out, which are your most important stats. And being able to look at this and get an idea of where your stats are going and what they're doing can be really beneficial. And if you want to do a little bit of a different core because you have a slightly different playstyle than most people using that class, this is how you would kind of, map out what you want to do and everything. So the core, like we said at the very beginning, you want to get all these to +7, and then start worrying about other resources. By that point, you'll probably be in your 50s. And there's a couple of pitfalls that we're going to touch on real quick. Allies being one of them. Allies are absolutely amazing and super, super gross. But you can also spend a lot of diamonds or a lot of real money and not get the ones that are going to be best for you. So I don't recommend people heavily invest in this. If you get the investment pack where you're getting here, let's take a look at that real quick. Oops, not in here, it's right here. Each time you go through a certain level bracket, you'll get diamonds and everything. So if you want to use some of the diamonds and do like 110 pull from diamonds that you get from here, that's fine. But, you know, don't waste all 8,000 or 10,000 gem or diamonds that you get from the investment pack on pulling allies. Please, God, don't do that. You get the secret command cards to be able to summon them fairly often, and you want to save those up so that you can do 10 pulls of... There's certain events that'll be for special allies, and the very first 10 pull that you do of regular allies is guaranteed at least 1 5-star. So 10 pull at first, and then just be careful from there, boo. Don't spend a whole lot of money. That's all I'm gonna say. Second thing on spending a whole lot of money. Motors, if you haven't seen a whole lot of our content, motors is one of the most expensive things in the entire game to level up. The amount that the evolution stones cost, that spray cans cost, that all of it cost is very, very high. There's other things that you can level up much higher for cheaper. And part of the problem with motors is that when we went and looked at things on like the CN side to see what people that have been playing the game for almost a year now, where all of their stats ended up, motor will give you more stats than anything else in the game. But it doesn't come with any other like super special effects. It's basically the whaling pit where you can just continuously throw money. And then once you get all of your motors leveled up to triple S and you have everything unlocked, you'll get a gross amount of stats. But it's very expensive to do that. And if as a brand new player you tried to spend a whole bunch on motors, you would be severely lacking everywhere else in the game where you can improve your character. And you want to do those as a foundation first, and then start worrying about your motors and stuff later. So just a small little tip there. Another thing that I want to touch on is that you get rating from beauty, and while it's not a whole lot at the beginning, you end up getting a fairly decent amount. So this character, it's got like 1 or 2 outfits. We've got 528 rating from it, right? Let's go take a look at my main real quick. And I'm not someone that's chased a lot of beauty things, or done a lot of the pay-to-win events, where there's the super high beauty event items that you can get, but you have to whale pretty hard to be able to get those because the drop rate is super low. But if you do just moderately collect them over time, you get a decent amount. So it'll be a couple of K. It's nothing to bat an eye at. Definitely make sure that you're getting outfits and stuff with, like, you know, coupons and everything that you get from events. Make sure that you're just using those up, and getting what little ones. Even if you're not going to use it, having those things contributes to your overall beauty level, which then contributes to your stats. And that's another thing where those people that have whaled get an absolute insane amount of stats from that. So just a little word to the wise there. Another thing that's not really connected to how much damage and everything you'll do, but the careers are pretty important. Careers will give you a way to generate a small amount of diamonds every day, and that adds up and gives you the ability to buy things from the mall and really increase your character power. So they're definitely worth doing. So don't write them off like they're not going to be any strong benefit to you because you're not getting stats from them, because that money and resources does help. Another thing that we want to touch on, pets are amazing. They're great. Look at I'm getting almost 5,000 rating from this one pet, okay? This is the Abyssal Dragon, by the way. The first pet that you get, you'll replace pretty quickly with the second light pet. So definitely don't overinvest your resources in the first light pet, because you won't be using him terribly long. And the resources to level food or pets up is not super common. So it takes a little bit of time to get those up. The first dark pet that you get, it's fine to put a little bit into because it's going to be about a month before you get your Abyss Dragon. But one of the talents requires you to fully evolve your pets to be able to get that talent. I recommend you wait until you have your dark pet, get that one leveled up. Otherwise, you're going to sink a whole bunch into this guy and then stop using him very, very quickly. So if you absolutely can't wait to get that talent and it is the most essential thing to you, put just enough into the first one, this little robot guy, to get him to his ultimate form, and then immediately stop and do not feed more into him. So that's, just be careful. Resources are hard to accumulate in this game, and it's easy to waste a bunch of them and kind of be out a little bit. So hopefully that points you guys in some pretty decent directions. Let me know if any of you have any questions on any stuff in the game. We've been doing content on it for about 2-3 months at this point, so there's a fair amount out there, but I don't mind answering questions that I might have answered in another video. If you want really in-depth explanations for some of this stuff, I definitely recommend you watch my videos where we go in and I rant about something for 20 minutes. Because you'll get more out of that than what I can convey to you in a paragraph without seeming like a crazy person. So, but yeah, definitely feel free to reach out with any of the questions. Welcome to the game, guys. I hope you guys found this helpful, and I hope to see you on the channel again. All right, y'all. Thank you so much. You're going to have to catch your boy in the next one because we out of here. Deuces.